when you do this, you really change the lives. These kids' lives will be different because water is in their village. These kids that I've served my community and my Rotary Club in coming up through the ranks as a president of a club, which means you have to be a chairperson of some avenue of service first, and you keep moving on. You will do a few things at the district level. You get to be governor for a year, lots of training before you get there. But you also get a lot of opportunities along the way and then after you're governor, because now you've invested all this time. You don't want to just kind of sit back and not do anything. So people like me continue to do things. The project that I started, I have been the International Service Chair for my club since 2003. And I've also been the Foundation Chair since 2003. The two go together. In order to have an international project, you need to have some money. In order to get the money, the Foundation Chairperson encourages Rotarians to give to their Paul Harris, which is our Rotary Foundation. And when we come up with a project, and we as a club get resources, fundraisers, get investors from our community on a project, Rotary International will match that. And so this is one of those global grants that was a match. So I came back to my club, and I made a proposal to my club about doing a water project in a small area, and we did. That developed into a much larger project in a couple of years, and then came along this one for Yakti Village. Yakti is, if you imagine where Manila is on the island of Luzon, it kind of goes southeast to a little tiny island called Virac in Catanduanes province, and Yakti is a small village outside of Virac. It has about 800 people total, children through adults, about 80 families, give or take. So I'm going to talk about, I said 800 people, it's about 700 and something people, about 6,000 miles away from us. My 5 major topics, 6 major topics today are going to talk about the water coming to my door, give you an eyeball look at the people and some of the project, what we actually did. And then some of the people, when the water comes to my door, this is what my door looks like. A celebration service while we were there, it got turned over to the people who live in the village. So I want to show you, this was a gift that was given to us, but as I understand, at one time, sugarcane sections were used, and maybe a small hole between each partition may have been used in order to carry water. People could lash a few of these together and go from one place to another, maybe on a day or a half day's journey. But the majority of the time, if you had wealth, you had the water brought to you. Sometimes it was by servants, or sometimes you channeled the whole water supply system to come to you. If you weren't so wealthy and you were dependent upon others, you lived where the water was, or you lived near somebody who had the water, and then you worked onto their system. But some of the earliest pictures that I could find on the internet round artesian water wells, and these have been parts of hundreds of years of our history throughout the world, artesian water wells. I need to say that if you'll notice the pots on the heads, they do represent quite a bit of the culture around the world of a small pot big enough to carry maybe a gallon and a half of water. And it's my understanding is in many parts of the world this was women's labor. The men didn't do it, it was women's labor to either go to the well or to the stream or the water source to bring the water in. Then we move into the early 1900s, and the 1930s, the Germans created this jerry can. And yes, the military around the world adopted it. It holds about 7 gallons of water, give or take. In the meantime, current plastic makes it smaller. But I saw time and time again that any kind of container, but especially different sizes of jerry cans, were used for people to transport water from one place to another. This is my photo. This photo was taken in August, but I probably have about 30,000 pictures of my different trips to the Philippines. This was literally taken on our trip, and it was taken at Yakti Village. This now is, in my observation, in the places that I've been, this is now a more respected way of carrying water. And with the advent of either a pedal-powered tricycle scooter with a sidecar, or the more electronic version, now water can be carried in larger containers, and whoever's supplying it, many times a truck will come to some of the more remote villages, and it'll come like 2 days a week, and you buy a water supply that's going to help you for that time period. Why am I so concerned about water? This is where I was born in North Carolina, not inside the barn. I'm looking on the porch of my parents' current house. My grandparents, my dad's parents lived on that place. My granddad and my dad and my uncle built that barn like 60-something years ago. If you go up the side area to the left and follow that little creek, winds it right back up, and the spring head is up near the top of that mountain. From the time I was a little kid, I can recall we had to go clean out the reservoir because animals weren't allowed to go into that area, but you had to go clean out, make sure that there were no leaves and disinfect it. Water was held in that reservoir, came down through a pipe that my dad had brought to the house. We got water by gravity. It was great tasting water. We didn't have any worries about it being contaminated because it came straight from the spring head. My dad went to work for Perini Construction. I lived all over the United States and Canada, and what did we work on? Water projects. We worked on systems and tunnels to bring water to villages and communities. We started with one. The next year I came back to my club and said, Rotary has this thing called a matching grant. If we take our $750, we go around begging for other Rotary clubs, and I get about $7,000 from these other Rotary clubs. We can go to the district and get a match for that. We can go to Rotary International, and we can leverage $21,000 and something. And it'll pay for 15 artesian water wells. This was a short-term, quick fix for 15 small communities. I've been back to visit 5 of them. We've partnered with District 3820 in the Philippines, past District Governor Anya Reyes, who was one of my hosts when I went as a GSE team leader. So with the 16 basic wells that we dug, and they looked a lot like this. I have so many pictures of them, but the ones that were built were in the shaded areas, and my camera didn't do a really good job of getting enough light on it to show. So I went and searched, those pictures on the internet. This looks as close to some of ours as we could get, except they were closer down at the ground. And generally, the people had put some cement around it so that women could bring their laundry baskets and pump, or you could set your bucket or your jerry can there. The long arm is so that you have better leverage to get the water up, and you are not killing off your arm just to do that. Now, many times the engineers and geologists will tell you where the aquifers are, and so
you guys get some expert help to locate them?
Right.
You don't just randomly say, we're going to go put it here. You get help.
No, that's part of the grant that you have to build in. I came back to my club and said, we've done 16 of these. Let's do another batch of 16. And Mike Souza said, I don't think so. Well, about that time, my heart hit my shoe, and my French temper hit the... I said, really? We've done a really good job in helping these people. I think we should do some more. He says, why don't we find a bigger project? Why don't we find something that is more substantial that will help more people over time? Okay. I said, all right, let me see what we can do. Now, with our global grants, our projects have to be $30,000 or more. And they prefer somewhere much more than that. But many of us are hanging tight with that $30,000. So I wrote the grant. It took me 2 years. We have to go do a needs assessment, find the community, do a needs assessment, talk to villagers in the community about what you want. How do you want it to happen? Are you willing to sign the MOUs in order to have what we call a community core, which is like a governing agency? Are you willing to sign an MOU with another water district so they will help advise you and help train a mechanic or somebody to take care of equipment and to repair and replace it. Are you willing to open a bank account that is designated specifically for this purpose? Because if we are collecting money from the United States and Rotary International is matching this money, the tracking is going to occur. You have to turn in receipts, you have to have timeline, it has to be an audit, the whole process has to occur. And it's a much better program. It really is a much better. There's more ownership in the community, there's more dignity, and then there's more responsibility as it is maintained and continued on. A little bit more about them. But they found this freshwater supply, and the landowners were willing to let us build a spring box and a reservoir and divert enough water from this place to serve the village needs, and then the rest of the water stays in the stream and continues on. So on the spot that we just looked at, we now have a spring box. And those of you who know water systems, you build a concrete box and put a filter on it, put a jetmatic pump in it, put the connectors on the top. I'm not going to use more technical language than that because I'm going to be right out of my own depth on that. Have an electrical supply to help the pump carry forth its purposes. This is the person to the back of us is past President Stephanie Prios from my club. The person on the right in the gray shirt is Elmer Messinas. He is the engineer who's not only a member of the Verac Rotary Club, but he is the director of the Verac Water District area. The gentleman bending over is past District Governor Reyes. He's been a Rotarian since about 1995 or 6. And the lady in the pink shirt with her mouth talking, that's me. That's the position that I take often. You did probably see here a pipe running, coming out to the left of the screen, and that's the flush valve that, so that they can make sure that the system stays flushed out. This is a flush valve at the top. There were release valves along the way, and then at the very end there's another flush valve down the bottom. The plan was assess the needs, include the leaders, get the grant approved, build it, use the plan the way it was supposed, because that's the way it was approved, and complete the paperwork. If any grant that Rotary International is supporting now, whether it is one of these, or whether it's an education grant, or whether it is a medical grant, it always has to include who's going to take care of the equipment, who's going to be trained, how are they going to be trained, and how you know they learned it. I didn't take this picture, but I asked permission to use this picture because I think this just says a whole lot. It is a picture of a kid getting a chance to have fresh water and clean water to take a bath. It's not all, it's not even connected to the food, it's not connected to clean sheets or any of that kind of stuff. It's just a joyful having a bath and having enough water in order to take a nice shower. While Stephanie was doing one of her components, I heard the kids playing downstairs, and so I sneaked down these stairs, and these kids were having such a good time. And you know how kids are, they always want to have a picture. So I sneaked down, I said, come on, get on the stairs, and handed the camera to one of the men who was kind of down there waiting for everybody to come. And here are these kids. This is the reason we do these kinds of projects. Because when you do this, you really change the lives. These kids' lives will be different because water is in their village. These kids live in that village. This is not a picture on Instagram or, those photo websites. These are the kids who for the next 15 to 20 years are going to have water because of what we did. It's going to be